segments of an industry being impacted?
First one is going to be ChatGPT.
Keeping that creative mindset.
It's very human sounding, very natural.
Understanding the goals behind it, the key metrics behind it.
That are going to save you a tremendous amount of time.
So I think it's a balance too. Learning a little bit. Understand
how generative AI fits into the applications that you work with.
Like, why are we doing this? What's the reasoning behind this? What behaviors are we trying to see shifted? Hey everybody, Erick Prospero here with the Microlearning Lab, and today we have Josh Cavalier, and we're going to be discussing AI tips and hacks specifically for microlearning video. Now, I'm a big fan of Josh. I've been following him in the industry for years. What's great about him is he brings a wealth of experience tied to AI technology, but he has the years of experience tied to learning and development. Josh, can you tell us a little more about yourself before we jump into the 5 tips?
Sure, Eric. Thanks for having me. So I got started in 1994 as an art director with an e-learning firm based here in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's really where I cut my teeth and learned about the industry. I learned about performance consulting, and this is way back in the early multimedia days, before the internet even. After that, I founded Lodestone, and we were one of the top Adobe authorized training providers in the United States. I had 5 offices around the country. Did that for about 20 years, jumped back into corporate for 3 years just to mix it up during the COVID years. And then AI showed up and I made the leap back as a solo entrepreneur, and that shows up as JoshCavalier.ai. And in that capacity, I go around the world and perform workshops, webinars, online courses. I have one asynchronous course that I have, and AI's keep me busy.
Love it. And I know that course, it's probably going to be updated on a regular basis, and we'll make sure to send out your information too, because I do want to include this on an email. But let's jump into the first 5 tips. So what is tip number 1 or software number 1 for microlearning video? And I know there's a lot out there, so I'm really curious and excited to see where we get started with this.
So, the first one is going to be ChatGPT or any other large language model. And I believe that there's a lot of upside to understanding how these models work and how to integrate it in with a video workflow. For instance, for many of us, writing an educational video script can take a lot of time. But if you understand your craft and you know how to prompt, you can expedite that content creation process with a very effective prompt and some, original data, whether it be a subject matter expert interview or you have an existing job aid and you want to convert that into a video script. Once you have that vetted information, a combination with that and a great prompt gets you rapidly forward as far as a script.
Love it. And I know I was on Team ChatGPT for the longest time, but my marketer recently introduced me to Gemini. Now, I love Gemini just because it has less issues. It's been less clunky, right? Do you have any opinion on other options? I mean, do you have any preference on either one?
So, what's interesting about where we're currently at as of this recording is that every week there is a leapfrog occurring in regards to what is the best model. And, you have to realize that these models have certain functions or certain capabilities that are sometimes better than others. For instance, this week, Anthropic Claude could be the best writing LLM out there as far as the way that the text is created. It doesn't repeat words. It's very human sounding, very natural. Next week, it could be somebody else. And I think that's, you have to maintain the flexibility as far as which models you're working with. Last week, Gemini was the best model on the marketplace, and then OpenAI updated GPT 4.0, and based upon testing, it is now the top model. And that's when I say top model, I mean in overall capabilities, right? So not just like creating text, but also math, reasoning, logic, that kind of functionality.
Love it. All right, what's tip number 2?
So tip number 2 is to make sure that you take a look at the marketplace and understand how generative AI fits into the applications that you work with. And I think that you have to be mindful that this is an evolving technology and many vendors are wanting to leverage it within their applications. I've seen some really good implementations and I've seen some poor implementations. And so the best thing you can do is give yourself agency by understanding how does generative AI work, either from a text-based standpoint, image creation, video creation, audio creation. Because once you have that understanding, then you can be pragmatic about the way that it shows up in your tools and whether you're going to use that new functionality in that tool, or are you going to maybe go off on your own and use an open source model to get the work done.
Love it. And I know at least in the venture capital space, any software product or SaaS model that had AI, people were just throwing money at it, right? And I can see that happening in the LMS space, but what are some good examples of an LMS leveraging this new feature or adding this new feature? Because you mentioned that you've seen a few of them. In my mind, a lot of them are just...
You put a qualifier in there. You said good. Okay. So, it's extremely difficult because I see a convergence happening in the marketplace in regards to solution sets, because there's only so many ways that you can leverage this technology, and there's only so many channels that content can be consumed. Now, there's obviously things that you can do in the background from a machine learning standpoint. For instance, going in and identifying skills or current skill taxonomies, building learning paths, that kind of work happening in the background. But I see currently there's so much repetition happening with course creation, right? That's a huge move for many vendors to put in the capability of uploading all your documents, and we're going to ask you a few questions, and then it's going to generate a course. And that shows up in all kinds of different ways, from full multimedia to a text-based solution that's going to do nudges and do that touch point right there. But again, the commonality is that it's using generative AI in the background to expedite the content creation process. But the issue that I have with that is that for these vendors, they are controlling the way that their prompts and their interactions with the AI shows up. And we need to be patient and see where all of this goes. My hope is that they will use empirical evidence and science and proven learning methodologies and incorporate those into these AI systems. My fear is that some of them are not doing that, and that we are getting outputs that are substandard, that if somebody doesn't understand their craft, they're going to go ahead and bring this vendor in. They love it because now they can go ahead and send training out to their frontline workers 10x the speed, but is it really moving the needle? Is it really having that impact? And so I think there's going to be this rub for a while with the current generation of generative AI until we get a GPT-5 or some other generative AI that has reasoning, logic, and problem solving in the model. Because right now it doesn't. Even though it simulates it, it truly is not in the models yet.
That makes sense. And it would be really cool to have a platform that really does a thorough training needs analysis, right? Understanding the goals behind it, the key metrics behind it, and beyond just producing content, asks about the metrics that you should be tracking after, so that way you're not just dumping crap content on a bunch of people. So I like that approach, and I was curious to see if there was any specific highlight, because I know I've been to a few conferences And I love walking the exhibit floor and everybody has an AI feature, right? It's the new thing. Like, hey, we're AI powered. We're an AI platform, and it all kind of sounds the same, right? Usually, most LMS vendors they will say they have a unique set of skills or a unique set of features, but they feel kind of the same. So that's a very interesting problem to point out, that it's not going to be solving core training business problems. So love it. All right, I think we're on tip number 3, right? What's tip number 3?
So tip number 3, I'm going to do a 180 and talk about how you need to be proactive in looking at AI tools because it's not all doom and gloom, right? You know, in the work that we do, especially when we're talking about micro video or video creation, we are always looking for an edge, and we're always looking for, you know, that one little feature, that one little functionality that is going to improve everything that you do. And so as well as being pragmatic in being careful about, you know, AI creating training at a commodity, if you can find a great function within a tool that speeds up your process, go for it. I'm going to just mention one vendor, and I'm going to mention them because I use them as part of my workflow, and I love their tool because it hits a sweet spot where it's a multiplier as far as my productivity, and it's a low risk function. And that vendor is Castmagic.io. I don't know if you're familiar with them. So Castmagic has a tool that allows you to upload an MP3 or an MP4 file, and it will generate a transcript from that file, right? But this is the multiplier. Not only does it do the transcript, but it will make the closed caption file, the SRT. That's great. So we can download that, upload to YouTube or whatever platform you need closed captions. But then it takes the transcript from either the audio or video file, and then using generative AI creates derivative outputs to help support all the channels that you need to, you know, put information. For instance, I'll go in and take a training video of mine and upload it. It gets the transcript, and then from the transcript, it'll go ahead and create 10 really good multiple choice questions that only take me about 5 minutes to edit. Distractors, everything. Done. If I need an email newsletter about that video, it can make that newsletter. So not only does Castmagic have their own prompts that you can leverage, but you can use your own. And so that is a true multiplier, because, you know, I need to have this, you know, as opposed to going out to multiple vendors to get this done, or even a human to get it done. Now I'm leveraging AI to check many boxes, and, you know, for the monthly fee, it completely pays for itself. So, you know, that takes time to vet these tools out, but I'm telling you, there are tools that are out there that are going to save you a tremendous amount of time. So keep your, you know, your head on a swivel and look at the horizon, and be, you know, just be mindful that there's sands are shifting under your feet as far as like the capabilities of all these tools, and give yourself time for experimentation and or reading up on you know, current tools in the marketplace.
You should set up affiliate agreements with the tools you approve. I mean, it's not a bad idea.
Oh, I do.
I'm sure you. I don't know if you've done that, because, I mean, I'm what you call a late adopter, right? I like to see that people are using it,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's somewhat functional, and then I'll jump in full speed. But I think with your expertise and just a few blogs and your insight, I think you can, one, solve a lot of problems, but then also capitalize on the fact that, hey, you know this works. Because, I mean, that tip is great, right? I was thinking, oh, okay, we need this for some of our products, so I'm going to go use it, and
Right.
just a random idea. But I love the approach. I know there's a lot of, at least for content generation, in terms of scripting, instructional design tools, there's a lot of options out there, right? Everything with LLMs, it makes it a lot more efficient. I don't think a lot of the media tools are there yet. I mean, what is your opinion on that? Because there's a lot of pressure on our side, and we get the question all the time, especially from our agency clients, like, hey, is there any way we can leverage AI on this? And we're always exploring, right? We want to be the first ones to use it. But have you seen any cool tools tied to media development that you think, oh man, this has practical application today?
Right. Yeah, so it's fascinating because it's one thing to go into a tool and there's tons of wow factor out there right now. And it's fascinating. I mean, it just inspires me to no end. Like, I just don't even have enough time to experiment in some of these tools. I wish I did. But I would say today it's realistic to be able to produce audio, sound effects, voiceovers, maybe some instrumentals from a music standpoint. I don't know about the vocals just yet with music. They're really darn close. And I think audio is going to be that first sweet spot that we hit. Also, very tactical use of AI-generated stills, or using the last frame of a video and you need additional 5 seconds for an edit that didn't exist. We've all been there. We're like, oh my gosh, you hit the pause button on the camera. Can we extend this frame or do something with it? And it ends up being a weird transition, or it just doesn't feel right. And you wish you had the additional footage. Well, now you can, because with AI, you can take that last frame and get that additional 5 seconds that in a transition, especially if it's a crossfade, no one's going to tell that the last 5 seconds of that edit was AI, right? And I think that's how it's going to show up. Like, it's not going to be like these huge, massive leaps. It's going to be these incremental changes in the way that we do video, that it's like the secret sauce. It's like these neat little tiny production productivity and creativity gains that are just going to be incremental as we move forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. Incremental for us, but then at the same time, there's relatively large segments of an industry being impacted. So for example, like sound effects, right? We used to need a sound designer to create something cool and fun. Or even the example on still images. Now, I think it's close, but I see a lot of potential with replacing B-roll or like Shutterstock, and right now, actually, I think those companies are being contracted to build out a lot of the data behind what's being produced. So I see what you're saying, and I guess in terms of the entire process, yes, difficult to outsource out of it, but there are definitely going to be segments of the industry being impacted by this. Or for example, like voice artists, right? I know I've always been against using AI voiceover until recently, where I noticed it's getting pretty good, right? We even produced, we technically didn't, because we're like under the table. It was a weird project, but we helped produce a meme coin behind Tucker Carlson. I'm not sure if you follow crypto space, but they were using his voice and it sounded like him, and it was hilarious. But so that makes perfect sense, that there's not going to be essentially a magic wand that does the entire series. If anything, it's going to make people involved in production a lot more efficient and capable. But I definitely see industries being, that entirely impacted in a huge way.
Yeah, again, throughout this whole entire last couple years in looking at the capabilities of generative AI and the impact that it's had on multiple industries, it always comes back to the individuals or teams or companies that truly understand their craft. Like, they really know it inside and out, and those are the ones that can leverage AI the best. I have a bit of a problem with the idea around speeding up individuals that may not know anything about video, and then they get an AI tool in their hands and it just generates content for them automatically, because it's either going to take an extremely long time or they'll never understand the skill in the first place, like composition and rule of thirds, and if the system creates a beautiful composition every single time, it looks great, but you don't know why. Why does it look good? But if you've studied, you understand how to leverage that multiple ways, or how to use it to create tension, like 1 point perspective, right? Any like I think in Stanley Kubrick type movies, he's always famous for shooting in the 1 point perspective, and it causes a great amount of tension. And again, because we know our craft. And so if we wanted to create an AI image that had a lot of tension in it, well, you'd use that 1 point perspective. And so I think there's this rub that's going to happen. Again, you have experts in their field. They're going to leverage generative AI and just take off to the moon. Like, they're going to be able to go ahead and do so many crazy things and create crazy content that was never possible before. And then you have individuals that want to create music, want to create videos, they want to do all this great work. They will, but they'll never gain the skill, or it's going to take them a long time and a lot of reps to understand why something is good. And so that's something that we need to look out for, especially as business owners or individuals that may have an interest in a talent pool in creating media. Because if you have juniors that are doing certain types of work and they're not learning from the experts about the why, that's going to be detrimental years down the road. Unless we get lucky and we have AI with reasoning, and then it knows the reason why. Like the AI can reason, and through vision technology know, oh, that's a 1 point perspective, it causes tension. Currently it can't do that. It doesn't know that. It can't make that connection, but maybe someday it will.
Oh, that's funny. I love that perspective. It's definitely comforting too. I mean, I know there was a period of time where I thought there was a list, right? It's a matter of time before a lot of certain positions or opportunities are automated. And I still kind of see that being the case, but I absolutely agree with your point on those who know their craft very well being multiplied, right? And then, I mean, just bringing it back to simple math, if you can't necessarily, I mean, if you have like a fraction and you multiply it by itself or another fraction, it just reduces the amount in general. So I love that analogy. All right, so what's tip number 4?
Tip number 4 is to be proactive in your own personal AI journey. I know that there's a lot of things that are happening around you currently, and some people are standing on the sidelines. They're just kind of waiting for things to shake out. But newsflash, it's going to be a constant. Over the next 20 or 30 years, we're going to have this constant cycle of hype, and then things calm down a bit, and then it's going to get hype again and calm down a bit, and it's going to be really tight. And so, when do you jump on the roller coaster? And now is a good time to jump on the roller coaster. And the way that should show up is, we all do deep work, or we do certain types of work each and every day. And how can you figure out a prompt, or how can you figure out to use AI, even Copilot in Word or PowerPoint, and just taking 5 or 10 minutes and just trying it? You may not be successful the first time, but learn how to prompt or learn how to use AI within a tool to build in some productivity, or take the time and understand, how does a large language model work, right? I think that personal learning journey with AI is going to pay off in the long run. Now, if you just sit on the sidelines and just let it happen, you don't give yourself agency, right? And the best way I can compare it to is when we go back to the web. There was an inflection point back in the 90s where, and I'm talking media and content creators, right? Were you going to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and a programming language? at the time, like ASP or Cold Fusion or, things like that. Or you can sit on the sidelines and you can wait for the tools to come out that would do the low code, no code solutions, right? So you wait, and maybe you're one of those people, but you know what? It's those individuals that learned how these things function. They get autonomy, they get agency. They can go ahead and work within a low or no code situation, but hey, we need to tweak and modify this, no problem. We'll do the custom plugin. We'll make the extension. We'll make the thing the way that we need it. And here we are again. We're in the same boat. So now the question comes up, do you want to learn how these things work? Or are you going to sit on the sidelines and then have vendors or have companies dictate how you have to use AI? So it's a decision, right? And I believe that we're in a environment to where there's so many free resources, right? Very different than back in the 90s, where there was only a limited amount of resources where you could learn about how to build web pages and how to do programming. Now there's an infinite amount of resources, and so there's really no reason why you can't take 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day and learn how AI works.
Now, we're definitely going to include links to your YouTube channel, your site, but what are other resources that you would recommend? Things that you look into, or maybe that you would recommend to the novice?
Yeah, so, one, there's a couple, and I'll give you the links. There's a couple of YouTubers, because I personally don't have all day to scan the news, and so I'll tell you how I keep up. One is I have an automation through Google News, and that when there's a hit on AI and learning and development or AI and HR, I get a brief. I get a news briefing through Google News. It's free, and I get, a curated list of the top news of the day in those areas, and those are areas of my interest. I have a couple YouTubers that I watch that do the heavy lifting. They're going in and analyzing every move being made by the large AI companies, and they break it all down. And so I just, I watch a 10 or 15 minute video on a Friday, and I got all the news that I need for the week. And so I can just I don't have to, it doesn't take up headspace for me during the course of the week. I know I'm going to get a summary, right? And then there's also a mastermind. I mastermind with one of the top Midjourney instructors in the world. He's also a solo entrepreneur, and we talk about what's currently happening in the space. He's more along the lines of advertising and marketing, and I'm obviously in HR and learning and development. But there's a lot of crossover there. So you find your communities, you find your information sources, and just be, again, consistent with keeping up on what's happening out there.
Love it.
And I'll give you those links.
Perfect. And now I like the idea of a mastermind. We've set up a few of those with some of our agency clients as well. They lean us. Some of them lean on us for a lot of more heavy production work, and there's that pressure to start leveraging AI, and we just experiment, right? A lot of what we do is find out about a tool, we test it, and see if it's something that we could actually use within a process. I think the one challenge we have, though, is keeping that creative mindset, or keeping that tool in mind when you're going through the creative process. So we can experiment, we can dabble with the tool and say, oh yeah, this could work for X, Y, Z, but when we actually get a problem, I've noticed we tend to default to the older way instead of trying to force this tool to work. So I think it's a balance to learning a little bit, but then also making a proactive effort on using, I'm going to use a jiu-jitsu analogy because that's what I do, but it's one thing to learn the move, right? But you have to make a proactive effort on using the move when you're actually rolling, even if it's not going to work out very well. Now with our customers, we try to be very protective of that, and so we're a big fan of it, just experimenting. So I like that suggestion is just give it a shot, maybe for personal projects. I do talk to ChatGPT and Gemini about movie ideas or book ideas. I don't know if you do that.
Oh yeah.
just pitch it ideas and try to refine it and go over. So I'll send you some of the silly ones I have that are a little weird. But all right.
Excellent.
So what is tip number 5?
Tip number 5, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And what I mean by that is, even though AI has the potential to expedite the content creation process and exponentially create media, man, you still better be looking at those analytics, right? And I think when you have content flood into channels, that it can create an immense amount of noise. And the only way to cut through the noise is to analyze, and again, I don't care if this is learning or if it's marketing, advertising, whatever the case may be. Like, you still need to have a hold on what are the numbers, and are we making any kind of impact in regards to sales calls, knowledge gain, whatever the case may be. Because, what's going to happen is that, again, we are going to get these systems creating media, creating learning interactions, learning experiences. And at first glance, it may seem like it's checking the box, it's getting the job done. But if you're not following the numbers, it could be a mirage. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges for business as we move forward, is this illusion of, because there is a productivity and creativity gain made with AI, generative AI tools, and creating these forms of media, that if they're not proactive with following the numbers, many companies are going to get burned.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, we even have that issue now of just producing content for the sake of producing content, right? And I can see that being magnified by all of this efficiency and scalability with AI. So it's interesting. And
yeah,
honestly, I think it just comes down to asking the right questions at the beginning of projects, right? Like, why are we doing this? What's the reasoning behind this? What behaviors are we trying to see shifted? And again, if you start with that mindset, it's going to make a big difference on the actual production side.
Exactly. And I think one of the other interesting caveats to all that is that if you make a big bet on Gen AI and you pump out a lot of media and it doesn't hit, well, at least if you do your homework right, you can pivot pretty quick, right? And here's a perfect example. Is I know a lot of solo entrepreneurs or business owners and content creators up on LinkedIn, and it is a mystery on how to get traction with posts. What is the frequency? What's the post type? Should it be a carousel? Should it be a text-based post? What's the format of text-based post, and so on? Well, all of a sudden, the format, or at least the channel, is changing, and LinkedIn is now pushing TikTok-style videos. And so if you've looked at LinkedIn recently on your mobile, or even in the desktop app, you're going to notice that there's a huge push in video. So now it's shifting and changing. How are you going to react? Well, I mean, if you have an AI workflow in place to where you're leveraging it for video creation, and you can switch it up and start creating 9:16 vertical video, man, you're hitting a sweet spot, as opposed to your competition that is really dragging behind, and now they have to go ahead and fill that channel. They're going to be laggards in the space. And so be mindful, because even though you think you understand a channel, it may shift and change, and this is where AI can come in and help, right? To where when you get the analysis and you're like, whoa, wait, we gotta go have to change things up as far as the way we're producing that media, or our whole entire strategy. Again, how does AI help you with that?
Love it. I'm very thankful for this call. I always learn awesome things, especially on that last post too, because we're really trying to build out a lot more content for YouTube and LinkedIn. We're a big fan of showcasing our portfolio. We have a lot of examples. Actually, this video is going to be part of our YouTube strategy, but I think the one area we've been lagging is blending that over, or accounting for LinkedIn and other areas. And I love the comment you made about the TikTok-ification about LinkedIn, Facebook. a lot of more interest-driven highlighting of content versus being tied to the people you know. So
yeah, exactly.
We'll definitely account for that in our content strategy. But Josh, I love this conversation. I was really excited about the core principles we've discussed, and I do have some ideas for you on your course. We can talk about that later. We will include your links. What is one of the best ways people can find you if they want to reach out to you for a seminar, to talk about life? I'm kidding, but just...
So they can connect with me up on LinkedIn. They can, once we're connected, they can send me a DM, or they can reach me at JoshCavalier.com or JoshCavalier.ai. And those would be the two best ways to get in touch with me.
Awesome. Josh, I appreciate the time. Thanks again, and have a great day.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
Curious about building your own microlearning like this? We've got your back. Click the video cards for step-by-step videos, subscribe for weekly tips, and check the description for a curated list of resources to kickstart your journey.